Hi, everybody. I'd like to share a couple thoughts that I have with you today around the idea of how to live now for a better future. And to start with, I'd like to ask you a question that we're often asking each other a lot these days, and that is, how are you doing? Um, Take a moment and really think about it. How are you doing in this instant? And as you do, let me have a sip of coffee. See, we have a tendency to either cling to the past or to grasp for the future. And so we have a tough time laying hold of how we're doing right now. There might be things that are kind of lingering in us, that are clinging to us, or possibly we're clinging to wanting something in the past to return, or we're so hopeful about the future, we're fantasizing, we're living in wait for it. But I want to remind you that really all you have is right now. This is where you are alive. This is actually the only time that you're alive. Hi, I'm Tom Griffith from Greater Formation, where I help people along these lines. I help people to get clear, get focused, and be fruitful. I help folks really lay a foundation for the 20s, for the next season of life, so that you can live in a way that's going to be beneficial. Well, let me get back to what I was sharing. This might be the best time in your whole life to, in a sense, get your act together. By that, I mean pulling your life together in a way that's sound so you can live in the future well. And to do that, you're going to have to first be able to let go of the past, to let go of the things that you cling to or are clinging to you. So you're going to need to take some time to address those. So if you'll just be a person of reflection in this season and recognize that there's some things that might be hindering you, write those down and address them. Now, we're not going to do it today, but you might want to do it with a friend, or you might want to do it just on your own, or you might want to do it with a therapist. But you want to get rid of, or not get rid of, you want to break the attachment of the things that might be clinging to you from the past. And secondly, you want to stop fantasizing and living in the future. I can remember God convicted me of that at one point. I thought I was doing really well. And then all of a sudden he said, you're defaming me, and you're not actually even living in my presence. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you're acting as if your life now, you deserve a better future, and you're just dreaming of a better future rather than living in the present. And when you're not living in the present, you're not even alive with me. And so I was really convicted in that, and I want to share that conviction with you. What I want you to do is to learn what I learned, and that is to learn to stand in the present and lean towards the future. So turn away from clinging and grasping and turn towards standing and leaning. Let me tell you a little bit more about what I mean. Now is the only time that you have, and to live rightly now, the best way is not to just think right, but to be right. Or let me put that more grammatically correct. Think rightly and be righteous. Now, when I say righteous, that's a biblical term that the Bible, in it, the Bible is describing righteousness, justice, living in a whole way. Really, it could be summarized on a bigger scale with what in the Hebrew language is to live in God's shalom. And shalom is the word for peace. At this time of year, it's one of the things we consider. Jesus brings shalom, brings peace. But peace doesn't just mean lack of conflict. Peace means wholeness. Peace means things like reconciliation, justice. I like to use the term integration. Shalom is living in a way, experiencing our lives in a way where our heart, mind, soul, and strength are united, where our intellect, our body, our feelings are being brought into a state of wholeness. And we are then living that out in a way of justice and caring for others. We want to live in step with God in the present. Now, at this time, there's a whole lot that we're wrestling about, right? We're wrestling about our identities, a whole lot of things personally. being in lockdown for a long time, we're wrestling with ourselves. We're not only wrestling with ourselves, we might be wrestling vocationally and wondering what kinds of changes I need to make to move into the future well. We're wrestling ethically. What's right and wrong? We're wrestling about politically. Who's right? What's the direction that we need to take? All of these things are big things that are not going to be solved in a short time. We're going to need to process these deeply, individually and corporately. So I want to encourage you in this season for you to deepen, for you to not have a knee-jerk reaction, to not just live in a reflex mode where what you're doing is what you've always done. Instead, the goal will be to deepen, to grow, or really, honestly, my prayer is that we would grow up. Would you grow up and be whole and sound and mature? And so here's what I'm suggesting. These are things that you'll hear me mention over time because I keep coming back to the reality of the importance of these. First of all, take a look at your setting and your roles. Look at where you are right now, your setting and your roles, and learn these 3 words. This is going to be important. Learn to live responsibly, caringly, and miraculously. I love that. Responsibly, caringly, and miraculously. If we start to walk in this way now, we start to practice this way, I assure you that you're going to become more solid and you're going to be useful and you're going to be fruitful in the future. So how do you live now in order to have a positive future? To live in those 3 words that I described: responsibly, caringly, and miraculously. So here's the takeaway. Here's what I want you to really think about. Think about today, the rest of today, or this weekend, or the next week. Some practical time frame. Consider this. This is going to take some reflection. It's going to take some thought. How might you live responsibly? Are there any things that you've left a little undone that you could follow through, bring to completion? The first way to be responsible is start to fulfill, keep the promises you make to yourself. Are there any things that you could complete that would give you a sense that you are living responsibly before God, responsibly keeping promise to yourself, or being responsible to others? So think about that. Live responsibly. Second thing, caringly. Is there anyone to whom or for whom you need to express care, thankfulness, concern? Is there anybody, maybe a relationship's out of sorts and you need to kind of make that right, confess what you maybe have done wrong, or figure how you might speak the truth in love in a way that could actually bring a sense of wholeness, of that shalom, that justice, reconciliation into the relationship. Responsibly, carefully, and then, or caringly, and then miraculously. And this is what I like best. In your environment, as you consider today or this weekend or the next week, is there anywhere where you might be able to pray and release God's presence and his power? Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth, that you can pray and declare the power of God, whether that's for healing or to meet a need, to release the treasure of heaven on earth. So how do you live now for a better future? Live responsibly, caringly, and miraculously. Consider those things. I think you'll find it helpful, and I feel pretty confident that God will use you and refresh you as you live now in the present.